comes to an interview, the most important thing in my perspective is preparedness, Tracy. I think it's critical that you are prepared. Not over-prepared, but prepared. And what do I mean by prepared? Have you done your research on the company? Do you know the people that you're meeting with? Are you planning to ask questions throughout the conversation? I think it's also important to recognize that not only is the company interviewing you, but you're also interviewing them, Tracy.
We call that the reverse interview.
Exactly.
Like
Culture plays a big part in that. You know, you have the Googles, the Facebooks of the world that have reinvented corporate America. I mean, look how I'm dressed today. I'm in a pair of jeans and a jacket.
This never would have happened 20 years ago.
Never. I'd be in my suit, which is hanging in the back of my closet right now.
Just in case.
Exactly. You never know. And I think that going back to preparedness, it's so important. You really do your research. You need to understand the company. You need to understand the industry. You need to understand the competitive value. You need to understand the people that you're meeting with, why the position is open. So I can't stress enough how much being prepared is so critical to the success. When you're in an interview, you shouldn't know you're being interviewed. It should be a natural dialogue. It should be a conversation between two people. That's the ultimate goal. That's the best interview. There's a variety of different types of interviews. There's panel interviews, there's phone interviews, there's Skype interviews today. So it's a hard question when you think about it holistically. And I think later we can get into more detail on each of the types of interviews and how to be prepared for them. But overall, it's about being prepared. It's about having questions to ask when you're going on a face-to-face interview. You want to make sure you have that firm handshake, Tracy. You want to make sure that you're making eye contact. You know, I think the other piece, Tracy, is making sure you show up early, not too early.
Okay.
You want to make sure you give yourself ample time. You want to arrive about 10 minutes early to the lobby, 7 minutes early to the lobby. You got to prepare for parking. You got to prepare for traffic jams. It's critical that you communicate with whomever you're interviewing with. If you're going to be late, it happens. But make sure you give ample notice to whom you're interviewing with. Your recruiter, your hiring manager, your HR person. Shoot them a quick text, give them an email. There's a bad accident on 95. I'm going to be 20 minutes late. I apologize. But showing up 20 minutes late and saying there was an accident, don't even bother. I've had candidates go the day before if they're not exactly sure where the place is, just to make sure they're there on time. And that's a person that's really committed.
Absolutely. I would hire that person.
They go the extra mile.
Yeah, for sure.
So you bring at least 3 to 4 hard copies of your resume.
Oh.
You'd be surprised how many people show up at my office to meet with me and don't bring a resume.
For what reason would they need 3 or 4 copies?
What if my printer broke and I couldn't print it in my office today? What if I want to bring in 2 or 3 more executives to meet with you because the interview went so well? Now you're showing up unprepared. Bring a pen, bring a pad, bring a portfolio. You pull into the parking lot, you need to assume you're being watched, Tracy.
Wow.
From the time you walk in the door and you say hello and smile at the receptionist, and you don't sit there and be rude to that person, because they are the first eyes and ears. Because a lot of times, the HR manager, the hiring manager is calling the receptionist, or they're instant messaging someone saying, this guy's a jerk.
Wow.
This guy's so cool, he was so nice, he asked me about my day. So you always have to be on your best behavior, you never know who's watching.
And have that personal touch, it sounds like.
Absolutely. Again, you never know. That could just be the CEO's wife sitting there while the receptionist went out to lunch. You never know who you're sitting with. I heard this once. There was a candidate going in for an interview and was there for about 2 hours, and the recruiter was anxious to get feedback from the candidate, what was going on. She's like, why is she still there? Getting nervous, thinking maybe, who knows, the candidate left and didn't have a good experience and didn't call me back. About 15 minutes later, HR contacted the recruiter and said, things are going fantastic. We love him. We're likely going to be putting an offer together tomorrow.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's fast work.
So, lo and behold, candidate finishes the interview, says thank you, walks downstairs to the lobby, goes to grab a bottle of water from a vending machine, sees a guy next to him and taps him and says, hey, what do you think of her? Honest story. He was the CFO of the company that he was just about to get an offer for. Let me just tell you, he didn't get the offer, Tracy. You never know who you're talking about.
References in the job market, are they essential? What type of references do you look for? Previous employers, friends, or business associates? What type of references?
Absolutely. Generally speaking, most companies are going to want professional references. They want to speak to your most recent employer, your direct supervisor, the person that can really attest to your strengths, your accomplishments, your achievements. And where are your opportunities? We all have opportunities to grow. I'm definitely not perfect. My wife tells me that every day, so.
All right, we'll make a note of that. That's not perfect.
But I think it's really important that you have professional references, at least 3 of them lined up. Some companies are going to check them, some companies aren't. But I think when you think about references, what the most important thing to really be aware of as a candidate is, if you left a company, are they willing to rehire you if you wanted to return to them in a year or 2?
I think that most people leave their positions because of money and compensation, and how to negotiate that compensation with the next potential employer.
Wow, 2 great questions that flow together nicely. So thank you for doing that, making my life a little bit easier today, Tracy. Compensation is an interesting question. It's very complex. The number one reason people leave, actually surprisingly, is not because of money.
What is it?
What do you think? It's because of their boss.
Oh.
The number one reason people leave a job is because of their boss, not money. Generally
When you say a
speaking.
boss, are you saying the owner of the company? Are you saying their direct manager? Who is the boss?
Great point, and thanks for clarifying. It's going to be the direct supervisor generally, the person that has the most impact over you, the most influence over you, the one that gives you your day-to-day direction generally. That's the number one reason people leave, because their personalities clash or they have different. Unfortunately, though, it's harder and harder to transfer with internally if you're not able to get a good reference from your immediate supervisor. So it creates a dynamic and a challenge. That being said, when you think about people leaving a company, the other side of that is counteroffers, right? So you're working here, you start interviewing, you get another job, you go back to your original employer and tell them you got an offer, and all of a sudden they say, no, we want you to stay. No, you know what, we really need you. They're going to throw a little bit of money at you. They're going to throw $5,000, $10,000.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, if you think about why you were originally leaving, it wasn't about the money. Certainly we all want more money. Who doesn't? But the reality was there was a disconnect with the team or your supervisor. And in 6 months from now, 98% of the people that accept a counteroffer leave because the original issue still lies. Awareness that you're now looking for a job, that you're unhappy, so now they're going to start looking for your replacement.
Got it.
You got to be very careful with your counteroffers. You have a choice today. You get to choose who you work with. As I mentioned earlier, they're not only interviewing you, but you're interviewing them.